I don't know why. Then when it gave me that countdown, I had the urge to try and fit your name into a song. I'm not going to do that. I don't know where that would have gone.
I was going to say, what song?
And I'm not a. What would I have done? Do you know what? I know what I'd have gone. I'd have gone Jolene by Dolly Parton, but I'd have said Maureen instead.
Oh.
I don't know. I don't know why. Hi, Maureen.
Hi, Lewis. How are you?
Well, I'm good. It's been a long. What day is it? Tuesday. It's been a long week.
Yeah, I was just about to say it.
Right. Okay. Let's dive straight into it. So, you are the next speaker that is going to be announced. It's not been announced yet. Obviously, that's one of the reasons that we're doing this podcast for the Coaching Code Live event. I have followed you for a while. I think we kind of bumped into each other in passing at IFS. Obviously, I know you followed you through Emma, through ESG and stuff like that. I didn't know too much about you until I saw you give a talk. When was it?
Oh my God, when was that talk? Was it April?
Maybe, yeah. A couple of months ago, I saw you give a talk in Manchester. And through the talk, I was texting Emma, who was also in the room. And it genuinely, I don't say this a lot, it kind of like blew me away a little bit. And we'll come on to why. It blew me away because the topic that you talk about is something that I'm massively passionate about as well, which is this whole relationship with food. But you spoke about it in a way that I've never seen anybody else talk about it, in very honest, very raw, very kind of like straight to the point, which is what I think this topic needs more of. Before we get into talking about that, because I've got a ton of questions for you. I say I've got a ton of questions for you. I've got like 2, but then we'll just go off on different tangents, right? Can you set the scene of why you are so passionate about this yourself?
Yeah, so firstly, thank you for that. That's very nice to hear. I'm glad you enjoyed the talk and boosts my ego a small bit. But I have always struggled with my weight. I'm not your typical personal trainer who's shredded or anything like that. Would I like to be? Yeah, like it would be ideal. Haven't got there yet, but it's a work in progress. Like Rome wasn't built in a day. So I've struggled my whole life since I was young with my weight. And I always thought like it was a me problem. Always had this belief that I couldn't, I'm never going to be able to be that person who's fit and in shape. And I never understood why I found dieting so hard. And I went through these cycles of like hating my body, hating who I was, and just couldn't get my fucking shit together, basically. And then eventually I actually learned that I actually was struggling with binge eating, which at the time I didn't know. And that's why every fat loss diet that I tried, just they weren't set up for what I needed. And I did, kind of got into a passion of health and fitness. Like I've always been sporty. Like I was always that like tomboy who played sport. But I never thought, oh, I could make a career out of this. But then I was kind of, as I was getting into it myself and learning more about it and following people on social media, and I was like, I don't just want to know what to do. Like I want to know the ins and outs of everything.
Yeah.
Like I had tried loads of things before, like meal plans, all this fad fucking shite, and nothing had worked. And I said, okay, well, I want to figure it out for myself. Like why I got into coaching was totally selfish. Like I did it for myself. I didn't do it for anybody else. I was like, I want to learn how to do this to fix myself. That was really the main goal. But as I started to get into it and I started to really enjoy it and want to learn more about it, I was like, oh, I could actually help people who feel like me. I could actually learn for them and help them to get over these barriers that I'm struggling with as well.
Nice.
So that's kind of the main reason why I'm passionate about this. And it's like I've seen and I've felt and I've lived the turmoil that it can have when you are struggling with your weight and you do struggle with your relationship with food. And I understand how fucking difficult it is. So I really just want to try and help people who might be feeling that, because I can empathize with that feeling and I want to do my best to help them out of that.
Yeah, amazing. My story is a little bit similar in the sense that minus the binge eating, in terms of like binge eating disorder, definitely overeating and stuff like that. But I am always kind of like careful in what language I use because of that. But same, always sporty, always struggled with my weight, couldn't figure it out, tried everything, more sport, more gym, more exercise, tried the diets, did the meal plans, paid bodybuild, all that sort of shit. All of it. You name it, I did it. I bought don't know if you have them over in Ireland. Bought that. Is it Adios, which is like the tablets you can buy from Tesco, which promise typical like on the shelf fat loss pills. The lot. Tried it all. Just could never wrap my head around it until I finally started to understand a little bit more about the nuance and the numbers and stuff like that. I didn't get into it because I wanted to help myself first. I basically fell into it by accident that a friend of mine at the time needed some help in his business, and I was like, fuck it, I can do this. So I kind of I got into it and I was still 150 odd kilos and I'd still not lost the weight myself. It was only through helping other people that I then applied it to myself. It was mad. So you mentioned that you'd tried a million different things before, and we won't go into kind of like what you'd tried and stuff like that. At what point, because it was only very recently for me, I say very recently, maybe 2-3 years ago, that I started to discover this whole idea about relationship with food. I'd never even heard the term until I was at an event and I saw Amelia and Emma do a talk together just before, maybe just after they launched EIQ. And I ended up paying them there and then to sign up. But I'd never even heard of it. Like, I was completely unaware. And then I'm one of those that I'm like, I'll rabbit hole myself. I'll hear one thing and I'll be like, I want to know everything about this thing. At what point in your own journey then did you realize that actually it's not about the food, it's not about the calories, it's not about the training, there's something else going on here?
So it was probably only about like 3 or 4 years ago, where again, it was all online thanks to Instagram, that I was following someone and their content was speaking directly to me, and it was all about relationship with food, like if you struggle with binge eating and overeating in the evening and all of the things that I was struggling with. And it actually helped me understand that, oh, this is why I haven't been able to do it. I was like, what's this? Maybe there is a fucking solution to the problem, you know? So that's only very recent. I'm only a personal trainer. I only qualified as a coach. I can't even remember. It's over 3 years, maybe coming on 4 years. So it was back then when I was in the depths of, because I'm like that. Once, like, I have ADHD, so once I get an interest in something, I'm like, give me all the stuff about this. Like, yeah, I want to know it all. Get hyper focused on it. So it was back when I was like learning to become a PT and all of that, and I was in the depths of it, and like all the content I was consuming was all fitness, and that's when I really started to cop on that. Well, not that I cop on, but I was educated that, oh, this is actually the problem. This could be the problem. And that's what I was kind of hoping, that maybe this is why I can't, or I haven't been able to get my shit together. So that, about 3-4 years ago.
I think something that I try not to use statements like all coaches and stuff like that, but I see a lot of coaches, and I work with a lot of coaches through what I do in the Amplifier. I think a lot of coaches still struggle with, they're not the clients and they don't get it necessarily. So the clients might be struggling with a certain thing and the coach doesn't know how it feels. That's okay. That's absolutely okay. But the point I'm about to make is that with this relationship with food thing, when I discovered it, again, it fucking hurt. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like shining a spotlight on this thing, and it's not as simple as eating less food and moving a little bit more, and the things that maybe work for quote unquote the normal person might not work for me, and that the work that needs to be done at that point, it's uncomfortable self-awareness, looking, I call it inner work, right? What was it like? This is a weird question. What was it like for you?
Oh, stop. It was torture. It was like I had brushed everything under the carpet, and the things that were coming up was like, I didn't want to face them. Like, it's like, I just found it so hard to, first of all, found it so hard to do that inner work, because you're so focused on, no, but it's food and calories and fucking training and I want to lose fat. But yet you're telling me it's not really about the food. It's about your beliefs or the way that you're speaking to yourself or what you're using food for. It's like, okay, your eating is actually a symptom of something else. It's like, what is the something else? And it's like, well, if you were to really go into it, like,
no, we're not answering those questions. It's the food.
Yeah.
I remember that it's not about the food. I was like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah. No, cause I once tried to get hypnotized off chocolate. Like, I was fucking Delulu.
No way.
Swear to God.
Pause. Pause. Right. I've seen this whole hypnotherapy thing thrown about a lot to help people stop smoking and whatever. Is it literally what it sounds like?
Yeah. I was lying on a bed, and this guy, I don't know, was he waving something in his hand, but he was trying to get me. Chocolate is poison. When you think of eating chocolate, it makes you feel physically sick. And I was like, no, but I love chocolate. No, I'm not fucking giving up chocolate.
Mate, I once, you've just unlocked like a core memory. I once, is he called Paul McKenna? There's a guy, right? There's a guy, I think he might be called Paul McKenna, and he does things like that. And I once, back before iPods were a thing, when it was MP3 players, and I got this MP3 player, and there was like a 25-minute long recording, and I think my mum had got it, and I think that's where I got my hands on it, called I Can Make You Thin. And what you basically did is you put it in your earphones, and you were meant to like go to sleep and stuff, and it was meant to play like subliminally and stuff like that. I probably listened to that for 3 months straight, and I've only just remembered that, as you said, that you try. I'm like, oh, fucking idiot, tried to get hypnotized off chocolate, and then I'm like, oh shit. No, say yeah, mad. But it's crazy. So for people that have been in shape their entire life, and maybe they got brought up in a household that didn't have any unhelpful food rules or approaches to food, I just don't think they get it, and it's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but there's a big kind of like almost. I've definitely in the echo chamber of people that do on my Instagram. I think the reason that I wanted to talk about relationship with food and not about nutrition, I was toying up with the idea: should I get somebody to come in and talk about just nutrition, or shall I get somebody to come in and talk about relationship with food? And the reason that I've gone with relationship with food is because you could get somebody to come in and talk about the best way to fucking whatever, figure out somebody's macros, things you need to know about carbohydrates or proteins or whatever. And it might only apply to 15% of the coaches in the room. Whereas you get somebody to come in and talk about relationship with food, especially in the way that I know you're going to talk about it, that is something that every single coach, I genuinely believe, needs to know about and needs to be aware of with their clients, whether they are transformation style coaches, whether they are coaches that are holistically supporting clients with just life in general, whatever phrase or term you want to identify yourself with, all of your clients will have a relationship with food, whether you like it or not, whether you want to pay attention to it or not. So that's why I'm excited to get you to come in and talk about it. Why do you think that there's still a large portion of coaches out there that are either, I don't want to say plain dumb, but they're not leaning into this whole relationship with food sort of thing?
I think a lot of people think it's a very soft approach, which it can be. Like, some people can take it to the extreme of it being like very soft and people not taking any action at all. But I think it's because it's fucking scary. Like, it is scary. And I think a lot of people are maybe trying to put blinkers over it themselves, like that. And now I could be totally wrong, but it's just my perception. I think some people don't want to lean into it because it is challenging, and it's probably a bit more out of scope of being a personal trainer. It is leaning towards the side of therapy. Now, I'm not trying to say I'm a therapist at all, but being able to facilitate a place where a client can feel comfortable with opening up and talking about their feelings is very important, because a lot of the habits around food are based around how you think and feel, like psychologically. So I think a lot of people try to dodge it in that way, but I also think as well, a lot of people think it's like an easy way out, or it's like you're lazy if you struggle with your relationship with food, that you just need to grind harder and all this, where that's all just a load of bullshit.
I think you've nailed it. I think it's one of the reasons. I think there's multiple, but I think one of the reasons is because it's not black and white. It's not this or that. It's not right or wrong or whatever dichotomous kind of like framing you want to use. It's not like this is what you need to do, go and do this. There's a lot more kind of like context to it. And again, I think it comes down to that thing that just because they've never struggled with their relationship with food, and they might have been the fit kid their entire life that had never really had any unhelpful behaviors or anything passed down to them, and they just don't get it. And like I keep saying, that's absolutely fine, but your clients aren't you, and that's also fine. That's a good thing too. So I think you are right in the fact that people are like, oh well, I don't know this, so I'm just going to pretend it doesn't exist, or I don't know this, so I'm just going to pass down the information that I think is useful. But what I see a lot of, and again, surrounded by coaches all the time, a lot of coaches out there also have quote unquote unhealthy, if you're looking at like the wider scope anyway, relationships with food, but it's dressed up in control and in discipline and in structure and in numbers and whatever kind of like, again, whatever frame that you want to put on it. It is interesting. I've been on both ends of the spectrum.
Okay.
I've before my surgery, when I had to lose the weight, I couldn't train. I was very much I'm gonna eat. Bear in mind, I was 110 kilos at the time, 1,600 calories, 200 grams of protein every single day. Can't miss a beat, all that sort of stuff. So I've kind of seen both sides of it. So you mentioned in one of the talks that you just kind of touched on it there about therapy. You had therapy yourself.
Yeah, and still actively go. Like, I go on a weekly basis. And not that I feel like I need it or anything. I actually enjoy going. I like having those kind of discussions, learning about myself, being able to understand how our thoughts can manifest into how we act and how we live our lives. And it's also very beneficial to learn how to not try to be a therapist for other people, but to help with how people might think, or the language that people might use, or good questions to ask people to get them thinking for themselves.
I love that. I absolutely love a coaching question. You know that. So the question that I've got, the follow up off the back of that then, is a lot of people maybe don't want to start paying attention to relationship with food with the clients because, like you said, it's out of their scope of practice, and it is getting a little bit towards that line of, am I coaching somebody here or is this therapy? You obviously toe that line very well. You've been on the receiving end, are on the receiving end of therapy. Some of the stuff that you cover with your clients, as I'm sure we'll cover in the talk in August, it gets heavy. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of coaches, especially in the Amplifier, and it's a constant conversation of, at what point do I know where my area of jurisdiction ends? And then what do I do about that? So how would you go about that if you are working with a client and you're like, actually, this is completely outside of my scope of practice? Then what?
I would be very honest with the client, and I like to have that sort of relationship with the client where I can be very honest, and that they know that, you know, she's not going to bullshit here. If, like, she'll tell it to me straight. So if it got to a place where this is beyond my remit, I would be saying, this is outside of my scope of practice. I think it'd be in your best interest if you went and had a discussion with a therapist or with your doctor, or sought extra help, and explain that it's for their own benefit, that it's not a thing of you think that you just can't help them or they're unfixable. It's like you are actually doing them a better service by telling them there is better help that they can get that you might not be able to facilitate.
It's a tough conversation, and I think there's got to be an element of like maybe ego, maybe pride or something as a coach, that to be able to go, and I learned the hard way, to be able to go, like, I'm not the best person for you right now. I'm going to refer you out. I'm going to find you the person that I think you should speak to. I'm willing to come to support you alongside it, but this is definitely something that I can't help you with, and I really want you to get help. It's tough. It's a very tough conversation. So what I do want to talk about is the way that you talk about relationship with food, like I said at the start, is unlike anything I've ever heard of, or unlike anything I've ever seen myself. Why?
I think I just don't have time for trying to be somebody that I'm not. Like, people can see I am not shredded, and I'm not going to pretend like I have my shit together and stand here, because people do judge us as coaches by our bodies. Like, let's not fucking lie. That's just the way it is. Yeah. And I think we have to accept that. And I just want to be myself. Like, I don't think that showing up in this industry or in life as anybody else is of any benefit. So I just thought if I could be honest and be open and share my story with people, not that it's all about, oh, I struggled with this, so that means your struggle is the same as mine. Not that at all. But I just think, I know myself, when I was struggling before and I went to somebody who, like, I just wouldn't relate to somebody who was like fucking shredded, ripped, didn't understand the actual struggles that I was going through. So I thought that, you know, by me being myself and being open and honest about how fucking shit it is, that I might be able to resonate with people who feel the same. And that seems to be what has happened. Like, people say they come to me because, you know, I don't sugarcoat anything. I'm a straight talker. People said because I'm not your typical fitness bunny who's fucking prancing around the gym and whatever. Like, nothing against that, but that's just not me. And they, like, some people did say to me, because you're not in like incredible Instagram shape, that they were able to relate to me more, or the fact that I actually understood what they were feeling. And when I noticed that was a trend, or that was a common theme, I was like, this actually feels authentic to me. I'm not going to change it. So
I think it's really important, and we were talking about it just before we hit record, is that, again, it's fantastic. I love social media for the most part. It's got a lot to answer for in terms of like the shit that it can cause. But I wouldn't have, like I said, I wouldn't have known about any of this unless I discovered certain people in the industry. I think when it comes to relationship with food, though, what we were saying before, or I was saying before, is sometimes it can come across like the people that are traditionally talking about relationship with food seem so far removed from the people that are struggling with it. They've obviously had their own history with food and they had to do a lot of work, but it's almost like they're the finished product. I can't ever see myself getting there. It's just too far out of reach. What I really like about you and your approach is that you're the first one to hold your hands up and go, look, I'm definitely not the finished product. I'm still working on this now, but I can guide you through this. I think it enables another level of like empathy and compassion when you aren't the finished product and that you're still working on it every single day. And the reality is, what I used to say to a lot of clients is, you will work on this for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Like, it's tough. It is really, really tough. And I think you're right as well. I think people will definitely lean into you more, whether it's authenticity or whatever, because they can see, actually, you are further ahead than me, but you're not miles in the distance.
Yeah.
Like,
I think a lot of coaches as well are afraid of actually saying things the way that it is. But then again, if they haven't experienced it, then they don't actually know what they're saying. And that's kind of what I like to do. It's like, sometimes I'm writing a post or some sort of content, and I might be writing the post will be like how I felt before. And like, the language in it could be horrendous. It could be really dark, and people be like, oh God, like, that's very heavy. And it's like, yeah, because that's the fucking reality of it. Yeah. But I don't think people realize how deep you can go within yourself when you are struggling with that. And those type of posts are always the ones that people DM me and be like, oh my God, this is exactly how I feel.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you have to speak and be honest about these things. There's no point pretending that, you know, oh, it's hard. It's like, hard is a fucking understatement. Like,
yeah, no, I completely agree. It brings up an interesting topic, though, that I'm just thinking as I'm listening to myself speak, and I'm listening to you speak as well. So does that mean, and I'm just asking the question, I'm throwing it out there, does that mean that somebody needs to have gone through it to be able to support people through the same thing?
My personal opinion would be yes. Is that biased? I don't know. But like, if I was to try and coach somebody who was very lean, skinny their whole life, trying to gain muscle, like, I don't understand what that feels like. So I just wouldn't resonate with them as well. So potentially. Now, I don't think that, you know, I know there's a lot of great coaches who have never been in that situation, who are excellent coaches for people who are in a situation like that, who are struggling with something they've never felt. But did they get good just by experience of coaching enough of people? Probably.
Yeah. It is interesting. It's a conversation me and Maria have had regularly at the minute, is that there are a lot of male coaches out there that only coach females. And again, it's a set of problems that they've got no experience in. There's male coaches out there. I've got, I think, two clients, two of the coaches that I coach, both work with menopausal women, and they're mid-30s males, and they are fantastic, get incredible results, are able to provide everything. They've got female staff working for them as well, and they've got a wealth of knowledge. They've been out there, further education, all that sort of stuff. But obviously, they've got no they've got no idea. So again, like I've not got an answer for this question, but it's something that it really interests me of, do you need first-hand experience to be able to help somebody? And I think it's, like you said, I think it definitely helps, but I think if you're either ridiculously educated, like you've just said, I've got a massive bank of experience of working with a specific type of person, or you've been through it yourself. And I think that the trifecta is all three, right?
Yeah.
Because then you can at least relate to your client and you've got that empathy. So kind of off the back of that question, and again, something that I speak about a lot, is what's your thoughts on people that claim they can help with something just because they've been through it? So I can help you beat binge eating because I've beat binge eating.
I don't agree with that.
Same.
Yeah, no, I don't agree with, and you see that a lot, like people who weren't coaches, or they've done no further education and they've just maybe been on their own journey, and off the back of that decided, okay, I'm going to start my fitness page, but have done no education around it. Yeah. I don't think that's very ethical, because not everybody struggles in the same way. And it's like, just because you struggled doesn't mean that everybody else is going to struggle in that same way. Now, when I first, like back 3 years ago, when I first got into my own journey of struggling with relationship with food and binge eating, I spoke about it on my own podcast, and I was getting floods of messages being like, oh my God, can you help me with this? At that time, no, I fucking cannot. I was not the right person to help. But now, like, I have done an awful lot of further education and stuff around learning. And because I suppose I'm further along in my own process. But that's not just I'm further along. It's like I've worked with people who I've asked to teach me how things work. And it's not just me getting the solution. It's like, I want to know, I've been learning along while I've been doing it, like learning, okay, why does this work? Why is that? Why might I be thinking this? And I've spent thousands on like courses and therapy and stuff to further this education. So I don't think that you can just off the back of your own experience solely use that as a motivation, or as a, what's the word? Can't fucking think now. As a reason for, being able to coach somebody.
Yeah, I think we need to remember that the golden rule of coaching is to do no harm. And you can come at something with the best intentions, with genuinely your heart is in the right place. You want to help people. You want to enable people to pick up the tools themselves, as it were, and do the work. But there are people out there, and I see it regularly, and I've had conversations with coaches online and people that I consider friends in person about things like this. I've been like, look, can I just have a quiet word with you? What you said there was actually, it's quite wrong. It can be quite damaging. And the conversation's always gone down really, really well. I think that's the solution. I think the solution, maybe. I think that's the way forward, though, is that people kind of like, kind of like us, need to be willing to have those conversations with people. Because again, I know that people are saying things with the best intentions. I know that people want to help, and it's hard to have that conversation without squashing their enthusiasm, but also saying, look, maybe just think about this, or maybe consider this, or maybe go and read up this.
Yeah. And I think you have to be open to taking that bit of direction as well, because, as you said, do no harm. Like, you're given the advice on what you know now, but that doesn't mean you know everything. So there is and even us now, like there's so much that we still don't fucking know. But this job, it's like you always have to be learning and willing to learn, and be willing to be told you are incorrect there, but this is where you can find the correct information. I think that's a really important part of being a coach, is like constant self-development.
Yeah, I'm always really grateful for it. I've had times, not recently as in like the last couple of weeks or stuff, but there's been times this year where somebody's pointed out something to me and I'm like, oh, fuck. Yeah, actually, you're right. You're right. Let me go and read this, or listen to this, or look up this, or find this study, or whatever. It's really, really important, but it's so easy in this day and age of online coaching in the way that it is now. It's so easy once you've got the tools, I guess, once you've got I know how to get somebody in shape, and you've got a couple of results under your belt, it's so easy to just kind of take your foot off the gas and be like, oh, well, work for this client, and it worked for me, so now let's blanket prescribe this to everybody.
It's the blanket prescribing, like that's the problem. It's like,
particularly with the stuff that you speak about. I think if you are a transformation coach, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but there's a lot more that you can almost cookie cutter. There's a lot more process. There's a lot more. We know what boxes need to be ticked to get somebody in shape, lean, whatever photo shoot shape, whatever you want to, however you want to kind of like frame it. As long as you're communicating with that client from the off and being like, look, I'm just going to give you the things that work. The rest is up to you. I think that's also fine. It's the stuff that you talk about and the relationship with food and everything that comes with it. There can't be a cookie cutter. There can't be a one size fits all.
No, but do you think though, just on the back of that, like just for discussion, like, so people who are doing transformations, but do you think that cookie cutter, I know in theory you can, like we know if you do X, Y, Z, you will get results, but do you think does that not have an impact on a person's relationship with food then?
Yes, I do. And this is something that I enjoy this conversation because my stance is, as long as you are honest about something and are very much, this is the positives and the negatives, and let the person have complete autonomy over their own choices, that's fine. I've seen people sign up to coaches out there with the sole intention of getting a photo shoot type of result, and they've had no communication about this might be potentially damaging, this is what will happen after, nothing, and been left wondering at the end of it why they're feeling fucked and thinking, is it me? Am I the issue? Did I do something wrong? Am I the problem? Which is obviously really, really damaging for somebody. But then I've also seen people, and I know people that will communicate with somebody and be like, if you want to do this, we kind of, at the same event, actually, we went after Jules's talk, I asked a question about what would you say to somebody that wants to make progress but isn't willing to do the thing? It's that kind of theory, that same theory applied, I think, is it needs to be a conversation of, if you want this thing, this is what needs to happen. Are you willing to do this, yes or no? Well, if you're not willing to do it, you can't get this thing. If you are willing to do it, this is what you need to know. So I had clients, and again, I used to get into interesting conversations, working on relationship with food and stuff, but I would still run client photo shoots. But every single time I'd say to them, this is what's going to happen. This is what you need to be aware of. This is how we're going to handle it afterwards. It may actually detract away from what we've been working on. But if you want this thing, some goals don't complement each other. You've just got to give it, I think you've got to give the client everything that they need to make well-informed decisions. And then at the end of the day, they're adults. That doesn't mean you have to do it. If that doesn't sit right with you as the coach or anybody that's watching or listening to this, then don't do it. That's fine. But I do think that something that coaches are really bad at, and I talk about this a lot on this podcast, a lot in my content, is this idea of expectation management. And which is why, again, what I really liked about you and your talk and your message is, like you've said, you are honest. You are prepared to sit there, just like I was with Body and Brain, and say to somebody, I had a client once come to me that was 150 odd kilos, and he'd had another call with another coach. This coach had tried to sell him a 3-month package of coaching. And I'm like, what, for what? Like, what has he promised you in 150, like 150 kilo client? Been there myself. What has he promised you? And I said to him, I nearly said his name then, I won't do that. If you want to sign up with me, I want you to work. I'm not going to make you sign anything, but I want you to commit to working with me for 18 months because that's how long this is going to take you. I don't think coaches like doing that.
No, because it'll scare people away.
Exactly. He signed up. He signed up and cited the fact that I was willing to tell him straight as why he did. So going back to your original question, I think if a client really wants to get in photo shoot shape or really wants to do an aggressive cut before a holiday or whatever, if you are willing to do it and it sits right with you as a coach and your values and your morals and you manage that properly, fucking crack on. And here's why. Because if you don't, they're going to go to somebody else. And if you aren't willing to do it, they're going to go to somebody and that person might not have your values and that person might not have your morals and that person might cookie cutter them a meal plan and slave drive them through it and crack the whip and then leave that person fucked at the end of it. Because I could not count how many clients came to me at Body and Brain from other coaches after they've been spat out at the end of the process. And again, I imagine with the work that you do, particularly within the group programs, I imagine you've got clients as well that have worked with other people that didn't support them and didn't manage them and didn't set the expectations and weren't honest, and then have been left feeling, like I said, is it me? Am I the issue? I'm fucked. What have I done wrong? And that's a horrible place for people to be in.
It is. And one thing there that you said is like, you know, like we talked about knowing your lane, but as well, I think a lot of coaches, like, you know, trying to self-employed or whether trying to get clients, trying to earn a living, like looking at people as, oh, this is money in my bank account. But if you're taking on somebody and you can't help that person, you're just taking them on for money. Like, that's totally unethical. Like, you are now doing harm because you can't help that person. And I see that a lot where, you know, people will go to coaches and they'll be told, oh yeah, I can help you, but they can't actually help that person, and it's just money in their bank account. So I think, you know, you have to have a pair of balls and be able to say no, like, I can't do this. And you know, you will be respected a lot more in the industry if you can be that type of person. And I agree with you in the sense of like giving the client the information and that they can do with that information what they will, or they can make the informed choice. Like, I'm totally on board for that. I definitely find that, especially in relationship with food, like a lot of people are nearly afraid of talking about fat loss or things like that. I'm like, but sure, fucking fat loss is very beneficial for a lot of people. It can improve their health. So, you know, that's actually something that we need to help that person do. And again, like you said, I totally agree with, you know, giving them the information. And it's like, if this is not what you're willing to do, then that's fine. But any good coach who is like evidence-based and actually cares for the client will give them that like conflicting information and say, your choice to do with that, whatever you will. But hiding that from them, that's just, you know, it'll come back and bite you in the arse.
And again, I do like to think, before we recorded this, I had a coaching call with all of with the coaches that I coach, and a topic of conversation today was that I do like to think, and maybe it's the optimist in me, and maybe it's misplaced. I do like to think that, again, most coaches have got best intentions. I like to think there's not too many people that intentionally avoid certain facts or avoid hard conversations, or I get that it's tough, like you said, and I know that I'm in a position where if I lost a few clients, I can still pay the rent. If I lost a few clients, I can still put food on the table, whatever. And I do get, for people that maybe aren't in that situation, the thought and the fear of losing a couple of clients, it can significantly impact somebody's life. Like, especially if they've got family, if they've got kids, if bills that they need to pay, mortgages, whatever. But for me, as a human being, it just doesn't sit right with me. It just doesn't sit right with me. And I tell this story quite frequently of like, when I first set up what I'm doing now, I genuinely think if you are coaching, your clients should be your priority. After yourself. You need to look after yourself. But when it comes to, as soon as you start being like, right, this is my portion of energy, resources, time that I've got for work-based things, clients should always come first. And when I first set up the Adherence Amplifier, what I'm doing now, I still had a full client list. Everybody was paying recurring. I'm not going to go into the numbers, but I was doing well financially. And at first, my plan was to run both alongside each other. And very quickly, it became apparent to me that actually I can't dedicate as much time and attention that is needed to these clients. And my options were let things fizzle out, let clients just leave naturally, and continue to quote unquote coach them, because it wouldn't have been coaching, because they wouldn't have been my priority, or send out a group message, which I did, telling everybody that I was cancelling the payment immediately, which I did, put myself in the shit, because that's my values. It didn't sit right with me as a person. And again, it did. And I only had one person come back to me and show their arse, essentially. Not physically show their arse, but like get the face on with me about what I was doing. But I was like, well, I could have kept taking your money off you. Like, for me, you need to look after the person first. And it comes back to this, the whole person, not just the result or the potential result. Like, the whole person, you need to know their life and the situation and stuff like this, because you need to be able to support them. And as soon as you can't, then for me, as a coach, you've got a decision to make, and the decision should be, if I can't support you, I need to find somebody that can.
Yeah, and I think most people value that honesty because, you know, especially when it comes to business, like people are used to or scared of being like, you know, having the wool pulled over their eyes. And it can be refreshing for somebody to be told, do you know what, and be honest about it and be like, do you know what, I don't think I'm the best one for you, or I can't support you right now, so I'm actually going to cancel this. I think they like that honesty, and it definitely will stand to you as a person.
I think people are smarter these days. Humans in general, even if they don't really know how to lose weight or they've not achieved it yet, they're not fucking idiots. They've got social media. They've got Instagram. They might have. I don't have TikTok. They might have got TikTok. Whatever. If they're following you, you can bet that they're following multiple other people that are putting information out there about fat loss and because it's obviously something that's important to them because they're following you, unless they're a friend, right? So whilst they might not be able to achieve it for themselves, they're not idiots. They've got access to all the information ever in a fucking 6-inch metal box in the pocket. Do you know what I mean? Like, what you put out in terms of information as a coach, it's not special. It's not unique. It's that's not what people like from you. I once made a post. I still talk about this now. I once made a post ripping other coaches. I used to do that every now and then because I used to just I don't like conflict, but I'm not I don't avoid it.
Yeah,
but I used to. So many people, coaches, will put up things like, I can help you get in shape without restriction and all that sort of shit. And I made a post bragging the fuck out of it. I was like, you absolutely can't. Like, by very definition of it, you have to restrict something. And I made this post and I was taking the piss out of it. I got 2 clients off the back of it for that very reason, being like, finally, somebody that's going to tell us straight and have the conversation. And I see it in your content all the time as this relationship. We've gone complete. I knew we'd do this. We've gone completely off on a tangent, but this relationship with food stuff's fucking hard. People need to say, especially if you have the ability to support somebody through it. I think you as a coach, not you, but coaches in general, if you've got the ability to support somebody with something, you are doing yourself and your potential clients a disservice by not talking about this in the truthful, direct, honest way that it needs to be talked about. Trying to sugarcoat things and make things fluffy and nice and soft and easy is setting your client up to fail before they've even paid you any money.
Yeah, I can't deal with that fucking sugarcoating shite. I'm like, just fucking tell me how it is. And because no, it doesn't get anybody anywhere. It's like sometimes you need to hear the hard thing and to be like, yeah, you might not like it, but this is the reality of it. And it's like, you know, some of my clients, like I had one client in particular who I said to her, you're avoiding something in your life. You're avoiding something. Like she was getting annoyed with her eating habits and, you know, was trying really hard. And I was like, there's something that you're avoiding. And she got really fucking frustrated with me, but we've worked through it and now she's come out the other side of it. And like, you have to be able to be honest and open. Like I could have just said nothing there and just kept making her believe that, maybe reduce. Yeah. Or just keep doing what you're doing, or maybe try and reduce the snacking. It's like, you are avoiding something here. There's something that you're not fucking opening up about. Until we get that out, we're going to keep spinning around in circles here. Yeah. And it might be hard to hear, but she thanks me for it now, you know. But that's I think that's the way to be. Like, people are coming to you for your help. They're not coming for you to be a fucking cheerleader all the time, or to be a drill sergeant who's just constantly telling them what to do. It's like, work with the person and collaborate and help them figure their shit out. It doesn't need to be formal. It doesn't need to be all like, oh, mollycoddling them. It's just like, you're 2 adults. Let's figure this shit out together.
Absolutely. I think, and I've said this pretty much on most podcasts that I've done so far of this, is that I think coaches need to give the clients more credit. I think we maybe have beliefs about them that they maybe don't want to hear it straight, or they might need the blow softening or whatever. But by the very fact that they've reached out to you, they might have jumped on a call with you if you do calls, they might not have, but you've had a conversation, they've decided you're the right coach for them, they've paid you money. That process up until that point shows they want to make progress and they think you're the right person. So why at that point do people start, again, sugarcoating and pulling the punches when sometimes I can't count how many clients that I butted heads with. There's certain times where you have to sit there and ask the uncomfortable questions and then shut the fuck up and sit there and smile and just sit there in the silence and watch the client kind of like squirm in the seat and get uncomfortable and not try and fill the space. But it is uncomfortable, and it should be uncomfortable because a lot of the work that needs to be done, guess what? It's uncomfortable. Like it's not nice. So let's follow this then. What do you think more coaches need to know about relationship with food when it comes to their clients? And try and make this quite general, because again, there'll be transformation coaches right through to holistic performance, or all different coaches. What do you wish that more people did know?
I think more coaches need to ask more questions of the client. I think there's too many coaches just saying, just do this. But it's like, you don't actually have the context around what the person, what their specific struggle is. And I think if we can get the client trying to reflect verbally about what's going on for them, it can help you as a coach, but it also helps them in the long term because they're able to assess the situation for themselves and come up with solutions for themselves. So I think more coaches need to get better and not be afraid to ask questions. I think a lot of people think as a coach, I need to be one like given the orders. It's like, no, like ask them, what does this mean? Or what do you think? I'd like to hear your perspective on this. I think that's very important to get the client involved.
I'm just, so for anybody that's watching this on YouTube, if you're listening to it, you won't be able to. I'm sat here smiling. I promise Maureen's not a plant. I promise I've not told Maureen to say that.
Oh, why is that something that you say all the time?
Yeah, and probably in every episode of this that I've done, we talk about questions and we talk about, so a lot of people, I don't think, know what technically what coaching is and isn't. And as coaches, we need to be instructors, we need to be mentors, we need to be coaches. Instruction is what it sounds like when you give somebody something to do. Mentoring is kind of like when you guide them through that, like offer more support. Advisors as well is when you give advice. Advice is something that you give when you've got personal experience in it and you've got first-hand experience. Coaching, quite literally, and this is the stuff that a lot of people, it's kind of like the drum that I'm banging all the time, is asking questions. The simplest way to think about it is if you are giving information, you aren't technically coaching. You're instructing. And that's fine. All of those things are needed to be a good online coach. Whatever label you want to give it, you need to be able to wear all four of those hats. You need to be able to give advice, which is based in opinion. You need to be able to give instructions. You need to be able to mentor somebody through those instructions. And you need to be able to ask the questions. But out of those four things, only asking questions, coaching is only asking questions. So there's a lot of people out there at the minute, and again, I probably lose clients and money and impact by being so uptight about this, but a lot of people out there at the minute are calling themselves online coaching and not technically doing any coaching because they're not asking any questions. And we know research shows us that people are more likely to be empowered to take action when they take ownership for the solution, whatever the solution is. And the same set of research shows us that people are more likely to take ownership for solutions that they come up with themselves as opposed to something that they've been told to do. So you can say to your client, do this, do this, do this, and it might be the quote unquote right thing for them to do. If you can ask this right set of questions to get your client to say, I'm going to do this, this, and this, even though it's the same set of information, same set of instructions, the fact that they came up with it means they are more likely to take ownership of it. It's theirs, which means they're more likely to then act on it. And this is, I nearly said his name then, I'm not going to because we've not announced him yet, but at the Coaching Code live event, the third speaker who's not been announced yet, his talk's going to be all about this. That how to ask questions instead of telling people what to do, because we've all done it, especially when we first got started out. I can't count how many times I've told somebody what to do and then got frustrated that they've not done it. It burns you out as a coach. It properly fucks with you, really, really grinds you down. And you're like, why are they not getting it? So then next week you'll say it a little bit louder or in a little bit of a different analogy, or maybe you'll swear or whatever, and the week after you'll be like, I'm still not getting it. When in reality, all you need to do is what you've just said there, is ask the right questions. I know that sounds really simple, but this is, again, it's research supports this. It's not just me sat here on a fucking one-man mission against the word coach. Like, ask questions for sure. So that's why I'm smiling, because I've not planted you. I didn't tell you to say that. I didn't send you any questions or anything.
No, because I was coming on this and I was like, I have no idea what he's going to fucking ask me, and I'm like, I'm not prepared at all.
No, it's 100% right. Where do you? I've got a bank of coaching questions that I love, and I've got, in fact, there's one right next to me, two right next to me. So many books with coaching questions in. Where do you come up with your questions, or is it quite literally just this is the situation, what can I ask, or do you read or whatever?
It's probably a bit of both. Like, I would tune into the questions that I'd be asked at therapy. Experience from my own coaching. Like, I've invested in my own private coaching like for years. I value it, and I think people should do it with me, so I'm going to do it myself. Also, books and stuff like that, there will be an element of, based on what the person has written, it might just simply be like questions like, okay, well, looking for an explanation as to what they've said. So it could be like, what does that mean? Or can you tell me a bit more about that? Can you elaborate? Might be simple things like that. But also a very useful tool that I got, and this is the plug for Ella Cohen-Chan. I have her Skilled Toolbox, which has some lovely questions in that as well. But yeah, it can be a mix of things. It's like, you notice things in different areas that are not related to fitness, and it's like, oh, that's a good question to ask. Yeah, so it's kind of a mixture.
Yeah, I love it. I love the idea of like a toolbox. Again, that's exactly what the Amplify is about. It's about giving people a toolbox full of different techniques and questions and worksheets and all sorts of stuff, because that's really, once you've set the plan, whatever the plan is, it's no longer about that, unless you are I've said this recently as well, unless you're a fucking idiot and the plan that you've set somebody was never going to work in the first place. But 99 times out of 100, that's not the case. Like, the body doesn't change that much, really.
No.
You know how to elicit a response from the body. From that point onwards, it's all about that. It's everything that you've just said there. It's asking questions. It's having tools. It's being able to read a person. It's psychology. It's mindset. People hate that word still. I don't get it. It's being able to communicate with a person about those things.
Yeah, but I think that's harder to sell, and that's the problem. It's like talking about what it actually is. Like, I know people have welcome packs and all this big fancy PDF document that they send. Mine is literally just, I write the basics in an email, and then it's like, let's just crack on, and I'll
see you tomorrow.
Yeah, see you in your check-in, and I go from there, because I don't know. Like, you can't preempt what a person's going to write in their check-in. It's not, and like, I know people try to have these phases, and again, might be different with like transformations, and people who are very in the know and they know what they're at. But people who I'm working with, I cannot like preempt what's going to come up. So I can't have this plan of, oh, you need to fit my mold. It's like, I have to fit into where they're at, and we take it from there. And like, that's why sometimes, you know, people might ask me in DMs what it is, and I'm like, oh, sure, you won't have a fucking clue if I try to explain to you my DMs. And like, not that I enjoy having calls, or I don't mind having calls, but it's not like a sales tactic. It's just because I'm able to get myself across or explain it a bit better over the phone than like trying to type it out, because people just don't get it. It's not fancy. It doesn't sell. But that's basically what good coaching is.
Yeah, I did find that too, is that even when a client lands in the business, so you've had the conversation, however you conduct that conversation, DMs, calls, Zoom, whatever, right? But even inside the business, a lot of this stuff it can be done written. I think the ability to jump on the phone with a client for 10 minutes and have a conversation, because again, going back to where we started this conversation with, a lot of this work is uncomfortable. A lot of the questions that you need to ask and the answers and the realizations that your clients are going to have are uncomfortable. So sometimes I found that can be conveyed when you write it down, it's open for misinterpretation. It's tough. So going back to what we said about what the coaches need to know, you are 100% right. Ask questions. The thing that I would add to that would be, but try and do it on the phone or on Zoom. Please don't ask somebody a really uncomfortable question by WhatsApp and then fuck off into the gym. like you need to be able to support them. But again, like the point you just made there is bang on the money. It's not an easy sell. No. It's not an easy sell, and I think it's certainly a conscious decision I made as a coach when I had Body and Brain, that I knew it wasn't going to be an easy sell. I knew it was going to be uncomfortable. I knew the clients would need more of me per client. You see all these people out there, fucking business mentors, trying to talk about leveraging your time and shortening your check-ins and shit like that. I'm like, don't get me fucking started. Yeah. Don't get me started.
That's what, like, the shortening the check-ins I don't understand either, is because, again, back to like asking the questions. Like, if you're asking a question, sometimes people might think it's rhetorical, but I say to people, reply to this question, like, because that's the only way you're going to actually help the person work through the issue. Yeah. If it's just rhetorical, then, you know, they could just easily avoid the question. So I think you need to have that back and forth with people, but also on the point of getting onto calls and where it's not an easy sell, it's as well, like, people relate to me in that sense because they get on the call and sometimes people can then have that connection. A lot of people open up on the call where they might not have done so if it was just over text message. I do get a lot of people on the phone to me who just end up crying, and that is generally a good sign because it means that, okay, this person feels safe enough to open up. To open up, and I can help them. And then it's like you give them the reassurance then that I understand this is very difficult for you, and reassure them that I can actually help you. Yeah, or I can't, and I can.
And being honest and confident enough to tell them to tell them that. I think, again, the work that you do with people it's fascinating, it's important, and I'm buzzing for you to talk. So, last question that I probably should have sent you in advance. So, what are you going to be talking about at, again, just kind of like whistle stop tour at the Coaching Code event in August, 30th of August? There's your plug. Tickets in the link below and all that bollocks.
So I'm just going to be talking about how you as a coach can support your clients better and to give you a better understanding of what it is like to be a person who is really struggling with their relationship with food, to kind of give you a better understanding so that maybe you can understand your clients a bit more and can make more informed decisions when coaching them, and being confident in yourself to say, okay, I can help somebody with this or I can't.
Fantastic. There we go. It's almost like you prepared that.
Yeah. Off the back.
Yeah. So, final question then, mate. Where can people find more about you? Where? Instagram, podcast? I know you've got a podcast. Plug whatever you want to plug. Go wild.
Yeah, thanks. So the best place to find me is on Instagram. So I'm Maureen @_ESG Fitness. Is that it? Yeah.
At Maureen _ESG
At Maureen _ESG Fitness. I was like, that's my email address. At Maureen _ESG Fitness. I do have a podcast. I won't lie, I haven't put fucking anything on it in ages, but it's the Maureen Joyce podcast. You'll find it on Spotify. It's not on Apple because I'm very fucking lazy.
Yeah, mate. I when I was uploading this is completely irrelevant now. Somebody was like, just use a RSS feed. I'm like, can't get my head around it. I'm just going to do it all individually.
Yeah,
it's like, ages.
Who doesn't have Spotify? Like, please, come on.
Yeah, more people than you'd think.
No,
more people than you'd think. And what I'm finding now is people like watching it on YouTube. People are going to sit and just watch me and you. Me, like, for anybody that's listening, I'm literally like, it's the one sunny day in Manchester today. It's like 30 degrees, windows open. I'm like wiping my head. People are going to sit and watch it. It fascinates me.
Yeah, I actually do like watching podcasts, to be fair.
Yeah, same. But again, it's because me and you aren't normal though, right? Like, no. People like us aren't normal people. We'll sit there and watch this. So, right. Thank you very much for your time, mate. I'm absolutely buzzing. So by the time people listen to this, they will know that you're speaking at the event. We'll get that sorted probably back end of this week. Thank you very much for your time, and I will speak to you soon.
Thanks for having me.